Hello guys, in this episode we'll show you step by step on how to disassemble the GPU, how to replace and clean the cooling fans and the part number of the fans if you need to replace them, how to change the thermal pads and the thickness of the thermal pads, and how to repaste. What's up everyone, it's Take the Screw Out. If you are new and haven't subscribed to this channel, please consider subscribing, click that notification bell, and share my videos so it could help other people. That means a lot to me for this channel to grow and make more tutorial videos like this one in the future. Thank you in advance. There's a link in the description down below for the tools and equipment I've used in this video, which is available to purchase in Amazon in UK and United States. Let's begin the tutorial. Before we start the tutorial, the screwdriver that I'm going to use is the Hichika's electric screwdriver, and this is included with the set. This is a 67-in-1 mini cordless electric screwdriver with LED light and 52 magnetic bits, and these are all included. So this is really good one. So this is the cover, the case. So just check in the description down below. The price of this one, the time of the video, is right now is on sale for £20, but the original price of this one is £23. So it's really good bargain. So this GPU that we're going to do is a brand new GPU. So now from the factory. On this GPU is still original from the factory. So we're gonna do a quick unboxing. So this is the GPU, and at the back, so this is still sealed from Gigabyte. So to unseal it. So this is the graphics card. The front shroud is made of plastic, and also the backplate is made of plastic. This is a small form factor graphics card, which is perfect for small case. And this is the available I/O, 1 HDMI and 3 display port. As you can see, the seal is still intact at the back, the screw, so this is very new. First, the screw bits that I'm going to use is the Phillips screw or VH1. Okay, pair of screws and the procedures that you're going to do with this GPU. I will not gonna say options because there's not much options with this GPU, but there are certain procedures so that you could access for the fans, to remove the front shroud, to remove the back plates, and to change the thermal pads and the paste. So these are the screws that you're going to remove. For the fans, each fan has 4 screws, so 8 in total. And the front shroud, it has 4 screws. And the back plate, it has 7 screws in total that you're going to remove that. And to access the thermal pads and to do the repaste, you're going to remove 6 screws. As I've said earlier, there's not much option to do with this GPU, but there are certain procedures to remove the fans, front shroud, back plate, and to do the pads. And there is procedures to do first before you can access all those areas. Okay, so you might ask, if can I remove the fans, remove the front shroud without removing the back plate and separating the PCB and the heatsink? The answer is no. Or you might ask, if can I remove the back plate, just the back plate, without removing the 4 screw and detaching the PCB and the heatsink? The answer is no. So this GPU is just a very simple one, but this is the first procedure that we're going to do. So the first procedure is, if you want to access the front shroud, the fans, the back part of the fans, and clean the heatsink, and if you want to remove the backplate, and also at the same time if you want to change the thermal pads and the thermal paste. This is the first procedure that you're going to do. Okay, so we're going to remove the 6 screw first, these 2, and this big 4 screw that holds the PCB and the heatsink, because without removing this 6 screw you cannot access the fans inside, and you cannot remove this. First we're going to remove the 6 screw. So this 4 only option that you're going to do to access everything on this GPU. Okay, so first we're going to remove the 6 screw. So this 4 big screw that holds the PCB and the heatsink, and there's these 2 screw here. So first I'm going to do this one. So the 4 big screw is removed, so the next 2 screw on this one here. Don't remove this 3 screw on this side yet, so you have to do this 2 first. Okay, so the 6 screw has been removed. So removing this 6 screw, you can access the thermal pads and the thermal paste. So you can detach the heatsink from the PCB. But be careful, because there is a connector for the wire connector for the fans going to the PCB. So okay. Okay, the connector is on this side here, so the cable is very short, so be careful. So not to damage the wire and the connector. So I recommend to remove the fan. If you want to purchase this special plier, just check the description down below. So just do like that. Make sure you're not gonna damage the connector, and just grip the connector and then lift it up slowly. Okay, so the connector is removed. So that's the first option. Remove the 6 screw, and now the rest of the option can be accessed. So if you want to remove the fans at this stage, I'll show you. This is the second option. If you want to remove the fans and the front shroud and detach the heatsink from the front shroud, you're going to unscrew 4 screw. So that 4 screw is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so removing the front shroud 4 screw, so you can now lift the heatsink, and now at this stage you can access the cooling fans. So cooling fans has 4 screw here. So the fans is identical, the part number of the fans are identical, and this one is just linked together with the connector here. So if one of the fan is damaged, you can just buy one of the same, and then you can just modify the connector or just attach with this connector. So make sure it has a 4-pin fan connector. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 4-pin fan connector. So I don't need to remove this fan because you can see anyway the part number. So these are the part number of the fans. if you can see it. Okay, that's the fan on my left, and this is the fan on the other side on my right. So they are identical. They have exactly the same part number. So I don't need to unscrew this 8 screw because I already showed you the part number. And okay, so that's the second option. The third option, if you want to remove the backplate. So the backplate is made of plastic, not metal, so it doesn't serve as a heat dissipation. So it doesn't dissipate heat. So to remove the backplate, you're going to unscrew 4 screws at this stage. But earlier there was 2 screws that has been removed at the back on this area here. That was included when you remove to access to separate the PCB and the heatsink. So that is included as 2 long screw here. So that 2 plus this 4 screw here, and you can access the backplate. So I'm going to remove this. Okay, so you can now, oh sorry, I made a mistake. To remove the backplate, it has 7 screws, so that 4 that I just unscrew, and also this 3, not these 2 here. This is also attached to the backplate to the heatsink, but that 2 screw that I mentioned earlier, that is included, that was counted with the 4 plus 2, that is 6 screw that to access the pads and plates. So the backplate is, you have to do the 4 screw here and also this 3 here. So I'm going to remove this 3 as well. So don't mix up the screws because it has a different length of this 4 screw inside. So this 4 screw inside has a longer length and this one is too short. This 3 screw is very short, so don't mix it up. Okay, so you can lift up the backplate. Yeah, but I just wonder why the factory bought a thermal putty from the back of the PCB going to the plastic backplate, which is, this plastic doesn't dissipate heat. Okay, so that's all the option, but what I've noticed is Gigabyte use a thermal instead of thermal pads. So it's gonna be difficult for us to determine the thickness of the thermal if you want to replace this, unless you are going to replace with the thermal putty. But because I don't have a thermal putty, what I'm going to replace is I'm going to use a thermal pads, a good high quality thermal pads for this GPU. So I need to figure out the thickness that is possible to use for this, because they use a thermal putty instead. But here at the back I need to retain this thermal putty. I'm going to put this one back here at the back, but here in the front, important areas to dissipate heat, I'm going to use a thermal pads. The thermal pads I'm going to use and the thermal paste are gelid solution products, so these are very, very high quality product. So for the thermal paste, it's a GC4, and the thermal pads is GP Ultimate. This is the pads I'm going to use. So I have a few different thickness of these thermal pads. So it depends on what thickness is the ideal one to use for the video RAM and also the VRMs. So I have to figure that out first, what thickness I'm going to use. Okay, to clean the thermal putty and thermal paste residue, I normally use just a normal paintbrush and 99.9% of isopropyl alcohol. Don't use 70% or less than 90%. Don't use them. Always 99.9%, which is almost pure alcohol. The reason for that is for the PCB. For the PCB, because it dries up very quickly and non-conductive, non-electrical conductive liquid. So always use 99.9%, and just check the Amazon link in the description down below. And also a microfiber cloth and any tissue paper for the messy part of the thermal putty. So, and also I'm going to use a prying tools to scrape all this thermal putty. So first thing to do is I'm going to scrape, and you know what, I will not gonna touch this because this is the back area of the PCB and attached to the back plate. So I'm just going to, so bear in mind, this is the stock from the factory, original from GIGABYTE factory. They use a thermal putty instead of thermal pads. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, because I don't have a thermal putty, I don't normally use them, I will use a high quality thermal pad. So to figure out the thickness of the thermal pads that I'm going to use is, I'm just going to estimate the trace of the gap between the PCB heatsink. So based on my observation, the VRAM is very close. So yeah, it's quite close. So I'm going to use a 1mm thickness for this VRAM, and the VRMs here. Normally, mostly I've done a lot of GPUs in the past in this channel. Mostly of the VRMs has 1.5mm or 2mm thickness. So I can see the traces here. It's not so the gap is not so thick. So probably I'm going to use 2mm for this, or 1.5. Yeah, it looks like 1.5. So the VRAM definitely 1mm. But for the VRMs, this is a 1.5mm for the VRMs. Yeah, 1.5mm for the VRMs is, I think, is ideal. I think it's perfect, 1.5mm, because the 2mm is quite thick. So let me check, because the G-Lead solution thermopads, they are quite hard thermopads, so I don't want to use much thicker one compared to the original gap. So yeah, 2mm is so thick for this one. So 1.5 for the, I will use 1.5 for the VRMs, all the VRMs, and then 1mm for the VRAM. So okay, so this one is, I'm not gonna touch that, and some of this area I'm going to put it back here. So I'm going to scrape all this old thermal putty. I just wonder why GIGABYTE use thermal putty instead of thermal pads. I think they're saving money for this. But you don't have to worry about to have the perfect thickness of the pads that we're going to use, because these 5 series chips of the NVIDIA this is a very power efficient graphics card chips, so it doesn't produce a lot of heat, especially on this 560 Ti. Maybe it does on 580, 5080 or 5090, but not on, definitely not on this 5060 Ti. That's the reason also that the PCB is very small, it's very compact, and the heatsink is not that thick because it's very power efficient, so it could easily manage the heat. The heat is very manageable, so you don't need a big heat sink for this GPU. Some areas of the VRMs, thermal putty started to get hard. I don't know why, but this one is brand new, it's not been used. Okay, so this side here, using a thermal putty is so messy. Okay, so it's time to clean the residue with 99.9% of isopropyl alcohol. So that's the advantage of using a 9.9% pure alcohol, is because the residue, it melts so quick. It's very easy to clean all the residue, and also it dries very quickly. Okay, so that is very clean now. And before you put thermal pads and thermal paste in the heatsink and the PCB, make sure it's totally dry. So I recommend to use a air blower to dry up the PCB and the heatsink. So me personally, I've used this Makita DAS 180. This is a brushless motor based on so I don't need to blow this one because just to dry up, but there's no dust on this one. So I don't need to blow this one because just to dry up, but there's no dust on this one. So again, I'm going to use a VRAM. So when you put a brand new thermal pads, make sure to peel off both plastic cover protector in the bottom and at the top, otherwise it will not gonna dissipate heat if you forget to peel off to remove the protective cover. So at the moment, the top one, I'll just leave the top one at the moment because to protect the thermal pads. So that's the VRAM. So I'm going to use a 1.5mm for all the VRM's area. So got this. So this one here. Okay, so the thermal paste is GILID GC4, which is a high performance thermal paste. Okay, so when you pour a thermal paste, make sure you use a spreader and spread the paste in the whole die area. Okay, that's perfect. Okay, so it's time to remove this top cover, protective cover of the thermal. To make sure, don't forget to remove this, otherwise your thermal pads is useless. If you forgot to remove this, it will not gonna dissipate heat. The heat of the chips will not gonna transfer to the heatsink, so that's cause you thermal throttle and overheating problem with your graphics card. So you have to pay attention with this. I don't know what's the theory of Gigabyte, why they put thermal putty in the back of the PCB to this one, because this is a plastic, it doesn't dissipate heat. So I don't know what's their idea, or maybe just to stick on to the PCB, or I don't know what's the point. But okay, it's time to put it back together. Okay, the first thing you're gonna do is the back plate, put it back and attach to the back of the PCB. That's the very first thing you're gonna do, otherwise you forget to put it on the screw. So make sure all these 4 mounting screw points will be aligned perfectly. So this 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the first thing we're gonna do. Okay, so that is perfect, and I will use a manual screwdriver for this 4 screw. Okay, just to give you an idea, because some people ask me about some GPUs, the measurement, the length of the screws. So I'll just give you a rough ideas of the length of the screw, just in case if your GPU is some of the screw is missing and you look for a replacement. So the screw for this 4 screw here, that is attached from inside the PCB to the backplate. So this is the one. So this is the measurement. By the way, the measurement tool that I'm using is called a digital vernier caliper. So if you're interested, just check the link in the description down below. So this one here. So this 4 screw here, This is the size. So it's an, yeah, so this is considered a M2 or 1, it's 2 millimeter. This is considered 2 millimeter. It's 1.94. So it's 2 millimeter. The thread, that's the thread, and that's the thread diameter, and the length is about 4 millimeter. It's about 4 millimeter length. So this is the screw. So I'm going to manual screwdriver for that. Use a manual screwdriver for that. Okay. So back plate and the PCB. So next is to attach the 3 screw here at the back. So this screw is quite small, very small. So this is the diameter of the screw. This is quite tricky because it's too small. So it's about M3 or 3 millimeter, and the length is 2.5. It's very short. So this is the 3 screw here, M3 by 2.5 millimeter. So by the way, if you haven't subscribed on this channel, please do subscribe and share this video and click that notification bell so that if there's new video you'll be notified. And please, so that I could carry on making more tutorial videos in the future by supporting this channel. So if watching the full video, so that could help me get more access, more different kind of GPUs. Even the older GPUs I will do that, and the newer GPUs I will do my best to do that. So I need a full support from you guys. Thank you so much for in advance. Okay, so that's the backplate. Okay, so next is, I'll put this one aside. Okay, so next is the heatsink and the front shroud. So I have to attach the front shroud to the heatsink. So that's the next step. So before you do that, make sure this is clean. It's not been used. So you already got the part number of the fan. So okay, so the next step is to attach the fan and front shroud to the heatsink. So make sure everything is clean and dry before you do that. Okay. So this will not, so if you made mistake that you go another way around, so it will not gonna fit because the mounting screw holes will not gonna align. So there's only one way to do that perfectly, so just one direction. Okay, so just simply put this one here and make sure that the wire connector is free. So, and then you're gonna screw it in 4 screw. I'll show you the measurement of the screw. So this is the diameter 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is the screw for the front shroud to the heatsink. So it's 2 M2 or 2 millimeter. That's the diameter, and the length is quite long. Is 5 millimeters, so that's M2 or 2 millimeter by 5 millimeter. So that is the 4 screw that attach the heatsink to the front shroud. So I'm going to use a manual screwdriver. So when you screw in with the plastic, just snug. Don't over tighten, could damage the plastic easily. Okay, so make sure the fan, test the fan, it rotates freely so it doesn't catch the heatsink, so it's good. So next step is to connect the fan connector to the connector of the PCB. So because it's a bit tricky because the wire connector is quite short, so you need to be careful not to damage the wire and the connector itself. So you have to be gentle, so that you could see. Just push it in. You don't need a plier to do this. Push it in. Or I can use the plier just to push it in the connector. Make sure it's fully pushed down. Okay, that's it. Okay, so it's the final. Next step is the final step to make sure the 4 mounting screw of the heatsink will be aligned perfectly to the holes in the PCB. So make sure it's perfectly aligned, and also keep an eye of your thermal pads. Make sure it's in place, because sometimes it fall over, and then yeah, keep an eye. Okay, so you have to turn it upside down, and then see, you can see the mounting points here is perfectly aligned. So make sure it's perfect before you put the screw in. I suggest when you screw in this 4 screw, don't put it in the table, just hold it first, because this bracket here is, I think it's a bit higher compared to the front shroud, so you hold it first when you put it in the screw. And then when you screw it in, rule of thumb, in crisscross pattern, and then you have to screw in gradually. That's it. 1 turn at a time. Okay, so 1 turn at a time. 1. When you screw in this 4 screw in the manual screwdriver, don't use a electric screwdriver, always use a manual screwdriver. Okay, so the last 2 screw goes here. So I'll give you the measurement for these 2 screw. So the diameter is, it says here 1.9, but this is considered 2 millimeter. So M2 by, so this is the length, M2 by 4.8. Yeah, M2 by 4.8. So by the way, when I measure the length, this is from the tip of the screw down to the base of the screw, not including the heads. Okay, so I will not, only the thread, the length of the thread. This is why I always measure of the length, not including the head screw, because some screw has a bigger head screw, and some of them are very flat, and some of them are, yeah, they're not the same. So to give the accurate measurement, just the measurement of the thread. Okay, so that's M2 by 4.8. Okay, so okay, so to finalize, make sure to check everything, make sure all the screw is in place and is properly aligned, make sure there's no gap. Okay, so make sure everything is attached. Right, it looks perfect. So fun. So that's the end of the tutorial. If you find this video helpful, please consider subscribing and please share this video. That's a big help for this channel to grow, and I can carry on making more tutorial videos like this one in the future. And don't forget to click the thumbs up icon. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you soon in the next videos.